Welcome to the IFAN International Women's Day webinar. IFAN is the International Standards Users Network, and our mission is to be the international voice of standards users and the forum for sharing information, knowledge, and expertise relevant to the needs of standards users. I'm Andrea Bedard-Smith, and I'm the chair of the British Standards Users Network, as well as secretary to IFAN. Joining me today to have a conversation are some of the women members of the IFAN Board, and we're going to be talking about the International Women's Day 2026 theme, Give to Gain. The members of the IFAN Board are all volunteers and have committed to giving their time to further IFAN's mission. So I'm going to start off by asking them to introduce themselves, and I'm going to go around the screen as I see you. So Vered, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Vered Oren. I'm IFAN president, and I'm also vice president of communication and foreign affairs for SII. Nice to be here.
Gabrielle.
Hi everyone, I'm Gabriella Ehrlich, and I have a background in business and in communication. Most recently was the director of communication of the IC, and now have my own little business after retirement, and I'm trying to help IFAN join the board in January.
Emeril, I'd like to introduce yourself.
Hello everyone, I am Emeril Itwa from Congo Brazzaville, and I am a management consultant and the CEO of Manager Conseil, a company which has been in the business for 9 years in Africa and provides consulting and training services, especially in relation to standards like ISO standards. And I'm also a board member, of course.
And Lois, over to you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Lois Ngonyamo. I'm currently the president of the National Standards Users Society of Zimbabwe. I'm from Zimbabwe in Africa, and I'm a board member of IFAN. My background, I'm a food science specialist and food safety specialist, and I'm also into sustainability championing. Thank you.
And Vivian, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Andrea. Hi, everyone. This is Vivian Xia from China Association for Standardization. And now I'm the Vice President of IFAN. And for the couple of years working experience in international standards cooperation, I put my main focus on regional cooperation. And also I work in the gender equality use standard tool. So I work as a mirror committee of ISO PC 337 in China. And I also work with youth, and because we promote nationwide education, standard education to focus on the junior and high school students, and which have been promoted for a couple of years and with a great support from IFAN. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian. Okay, thank you, everybody. So on to our discussions. Why does it matter to have more women contributing at board level in international and national standards organizations? Vered, can you answer that first?
Oh, surely. We have to know that globally, women make up close to 50% of the workforce. Yet, when we look at corporate governance worldwide, women hold about 1/4 of board seats. Even more striking, I think, is that only around 6 to 8% of CEO globally are women. So there's still a clear gap between participation and leadership. In standard organization, this gap matters because standards shape products, services, safety systems, and technologies used by everyone. If leadership does not reflect the diversity of those users, certain perspectives may be overlooked. When I started working in standardization some years ago, most meetings were dominated by men. You mostly saw men in those meetings, especially in the technical ones. Even in IFAN, most of the members and the board members were men. Now, for the first time, I'm very proud to say that we have more women on the board than men. And I'm lucky to be the first woman to be the president of IFAN, and I feel very proud of that. ISO and IC recognize this problem with the gender responsive standards guide and produce this gender responsive standard guidance. And we see that many standards just don't fit to both genders. Let's take, for example, the crash the test dummies. They were tested for men. Clothing sizing, protective clothing, all of them took the dimensions of a man rather than a woman. And what about car seat belts? I remember when I was pregnant, I had to wear a special device on the car seat belt to make sure everything will be okay because it was meant for men. So there's a lot to do. And I think we should have more women on the boards.
Thank you, Mehmed. Emerald, can I ask you the same question? Why does it matter to have women contributing at board level in organisations? And also, what changes when leadership becomes more diverse?
Okay, I think that gender diversity is very critical in all organizations, and that it aids in broadening perspectives and providing better representation for all segments of the population. And it also has been proved to help achieving high levels of performance. So I think that a gender diverse board is frequently connected with better governance and more inclusive and effective leadership. And that's really important, but we still have a lot to do in that field.
Thank you. And Gabriella, can I turn to you now and ask you for your view?
Yeah, I think I would go even one step further. Diversity at the top directly influences what topics people are looking at, which voices are invited around the table into committees, and how strongly different perspectives are defended around the globe. And so for me, diversity is, yes, with more women, but it's also more people from different areas. And I think with IFAN, we're lucky that we have people who are representing different continents. And for women in particular, if you keep in mind that women decide about 75% of all purchases, so they have an enormous purchase power. But as Verit said, they're very underrepresented both in how standards are developed and in the considerations in standards. And so diverse boards are much better in identifying blind spots, unintended consequences. They can look at risk managements in a different way because we don't all think or live the same way. So we can bring very many different perspectives to the table.
Thank you. Going on to our second question, how does diversity on a board improve decision making, and why is this particularly important in standards communities? Gabriella, let's continue with you and ask you to answer that question first.
Yeah, when you have homogeneous thinking, that can be risky on the one side, and it also limits opportunities, and bias can be really baked into decisions because they're default values that will be represented and reflected in those who are by those who are in the room. And so, as I said before, it directly influence priority. And since volunteers are a sparse commodity, it can really slant where things are going, how things are going. So in both at the level of working groups and standardization, but also at board level in organizations. And so when you have these different viewpoints around the table, it really does directly influence how and what we're looking at, and it can bring much broader viewpoints and challenge thoughts that have been held maybe for a long time, because we know sometimes men's hierarchy doesn't always allow them to speak up, and I think there women have a big role to play, and sometimes we have it a bit easier to be heard. simply because we don't fit into that pecking order.
MRL, would you like to add anything to that?
Okay, yes, I think that diversity helps bringing together varied perspectives, experiences, and skills, and it helps fostering innovation, and it eliminates groupthink. And having different backgrounds and viewpoints will help identify risks and opportunities that a less diverse group may overlook. And it can enhance innovation, creativity, because you have a wider range of ideas and approaches that encourages more creative solutions. And standards, especially now, affect global industries and stakeholders. And the diversified representative board ensures that standards are fair and do not favor any particular industry, area, or interest group. And to finish, I will say that diversity really contributes to anticipating diverse regulatory frameworks and ethical consideration, ensuring that standards are resilient and forward-looking.
And what's your view about the importance of board diversity in the standards community?
I think border diversity and improve decision making, and by improving border viewpoint and foster constructive challenge. And for IFAN Board, we have very perfect member construction because we have members from different region and members from different size of organization. And sure, we have perfect. I think that we have perfect gender percentage, which bring us very non-biased information to ensure our making decision reflects a very wide range of stakeholder needs. And I think it's very important for an organization and the standardization community, especially for our IFAN board. And I think IFAN's role is to ensure that standard users and to support our standard users, and also to make sure that standard serves the real market needs and support the trade to enhance the sustainability. So as a diverse IFAN board with a proper gender percentage and various professional background and industry experience, and as well as a geographical representative and gender percentage, I think it can strengthen its ability to understand the diverse compliance and the practical needs of the standard users. And also it provides a very balanced and independent input to ensure the whole standardization process. So a balanced gender representative of a standard community can help a balanced decision making. So it's very important for our IFAN board. Thank you.
So our next question, I'm going to move over and ask Lois to answer this. How does a diverse board ultimately strengthen outcomes for you standards users, and where does the impact become visible? Lois.
Thank you. Thank you. I think a diverse board brings in more critical thinking and a more varied experience and background, which influences the variety of standards that are made available for everybody. Standards are available for a lot of people in the world, and the world has 50% women, 50% men. Diversity will ensure that there's inclusivity from both genders and both experiences. It's not just about one gender. It's not just about technical people. It includes everybody. Everybody uses standards, from the technical people, from the non-technical people, from the most basic of people. They use standards, and diversity ensures that the standard users in the world are all catered for.
Absolutely, thank you. Vered, what would you like to add to that?
I might say the nice thing about our board in IFAN is that we're really from different continents. We have from Asia, from Europe, from the Americas, from Australia, and that gives great perspectives. It all boils down to perspectives. Standards are written by people, and the questions we ask as board level shape and when the board is more diverse, the conversation changes in important ways. So there's a lot of impact on that and becomes visible in how practical and realistic standards are. A diverse board is more likely to think about implementation, about whether something will truly work in real environment and not just on a paper. And I think in the last survey that we had in IFAN, we also saw a lot of women who replied, some of them were different answers than the men. And that's why I think diversity is very important. When different voices are part of the decision-making process, then the outcome tends to be more balanced, more realistic, and more inclusive for the people who actually use standards every day.
Lovely, thank you very much. So our next question, I'm going to ask all of you to answer. What structural or cultural barriers still exist that may make women hesitant to join boards or standards networks? Gabriella, can I ask you to kick off that question?
Yeah, I can think of several. I mean, on the one side, for example, there is a long history of male-dominated participation and a lot of jargon in our areas, a lot of jargon procedures, and it's an environment that may feel a bit closed to newcomers because um, even when organizations welcome diversity, it can feel a little bit intimidating. Also, if you are a volunteer on a board, meetings usually happen outside of major workloads, and it's still assumed quite often that women don't have the ability to step into roles like this because they have personal responsibilities to cater to, and maybe some of the women think that about themselves as well. Interestingly, also, I found that while men during social gatherings around meetings talk about their family and their kids, women often hold back on that because they are afraid that it's perceived that they are too soft, that they're focusing on that aspect of their life rather than on the professional part. And so I find that a little bit sad. I think with the younger generation, I've seen a little bit of change, but I think there's still a lot to do. And I have to say also for me personally, what I felt, and I hope that is changing too, but I don't know. When I was younger, in my 30s, 40s, I found it quite difficult to become part of that buddies network that forms around members of boards, but also about members of working groups. And it's a little bit suspicious if women. I mean, it was felt that it was suspicious if women go out with guys to have a beer or whatever. And so you're missing out on that network that is being built in a certain way. I don't have that today anymore, I guess, because I'm older. But certainly when I was 30, 40, that was a consideration. And it might be because of the time I was 30 or 40. But as I said, I overhear from the discussions of former staff that I had that they are still struggling with this kind of diversity issues that are around there. And so one last thing maybe is that interestingly enough, in countries that may be considered more backwards compared to Western countries, women are more equal in society. I've seen many more, for example, women engineers participating in working groups. Not so much at the highest level, but still, it has to do, I guess, with a certain level of respect for women that is different. And I think that is very encouraging. So, voila.
So, Emerald, over to you. What's your view?
Okay, I think that acceptance of gender equity remains an issue in several countries, and there are still many inequalities in this subject around the world, and there are still more work to be done in terms of gender equality. We can talk about access to education, that is still in 2026 a difficulty for some girls and for some women, as well as access to job opportunities and just being able to raise your voice as a woman. So it is also, for me, a justification for having a more diverse board, especially in multinational organizations, to promote gender equity globally and to inspire more women to join boards and standard networks.
Thank you. Lois, what would you like to add to that?
Yeah, in addition to what my colleagues have pointed out, my personal experience, work-life balance. As a woman, you're juggling caregiving and other responsibilities that come with women, and that can make it tough to commit to board roles as opposed to our counterparts, the male. And there's time and workload pressures, and participation in standardization is largely voluntary, and you have to give a lot of your time. And women who frequently carry caregiving responsibilities and other women's roles often struggle to to attend to after hours meetings, for example, because there's chores to be done at home, even to travel for international workshops or conferences, or even contributing to lengthy, technical reviews that are involved in standardization. So this is especially visible in countries like ours, in developing countries. The roles that women have to carry out are quite intensive and makes it difficult for them to participate in board work or even in standards development. Emeril talked about access to education. It's true, and the ratio of women in science or educated women in Africa, particularly, is still an issue, and it's still an opportunity for improvement. And you find that many standards committees draw from professions like engineering, ICT, manufacturing, energy, the science-biased fields. And in these areas, you find women are already underrepresented, and you find that imbalance in standards participation because of that background. And this reduces the pool of potential female delegates in standardization and even in board representation. That's my contribution.
Thank you, Lois. And lastly, Farid, what would you like to say?
Wow, listening to all of you, I must agree with most of the things that you said. I believe the situation today is much, much, much better than in the past. I mean, for sure. And I think you will see it all around the world. However, reality, we see that there is a big gap between what organizations declare and what exists in practice. I don't want to say to return of the things that you just said. I would just add that I think if you do have a supportive environment behind you, and perhaps if you have a role model, like a mother or someone in the family who did something, it helps. It does help. And I see myself as someone who had a mom with a career, and she knew how to manage the family, but she did have a great career and a very supportive family to help me and support me with all my activities. So I was able to do things. But when my kids were younger, I gave up a lot of those things. I couldn't do all those things. So it's much better, but there's still much more to do.
And Vivian, what's your view?
And I think the several construction and cultural barriers still still prevent women to join some boards or standard networks. It includes some unconscious bias or limited access to some informal networks or the role modes, such as, for example, for me, because of the time difference, some board meeting, yeah, thank you so much. I have actually most of the board meeting arranged to make sure that each member is for the time convenience. But actually, for the due to the time difference, some of the board meeting is arranged maybe in the very early morning, maybe 4 o'clock in the morning, or maybe 10 o'clock p.m. in the afternoon. So if without my family's support, I don't think I can manage to attend the meeting, because I have to make sure they, such as cooking or do some housekeeping work, and make a speech during the board meeting. I don't think it's possible. So I think all this arrangement of the work still make women in participating in some board activities. Thank you.
So let's go on to our next question. Standards communities can appear male-dominated from the outside. What helped you feel confident stepping into that environment? Gabriella, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I quickly realized that when it's, of course, super important to have matter specialists and engineers sitting around the table where standards are developed or where decisions about standards are taken. But I think it's equally important to have people who can help them to frame the needs of users, who can see the bigger picture in a different way, and who can bring sometimes a broader viewpoint to the table. And I often took that role. So more than once, I was able to help specialists to see the bigger picture. And I give you an example. A couple of years ago, I was involved in a working group that developed a white paper around wireless networks for the Internet of Things. I guess today we would call that digitalization. And since this is a complex topic, the experts around the table decided that they would focus on industrial networks, wireless networks. Now, my involvement in the World Electronics Forum made me quite aware about a lot of the consumer devices that are being developed or have been developed around health and sports, but I think health is particularly relevant there. And listening to stories, I found that while companies will often not allow factory workers to use their smartphones in the spaces where things are assembled because there are robots and computers that are there, you can't really forbid them to wear a health device, for example, a cardio monitor, which may send out information to a doctor, often real time. And so if you don't look at the whole thing in a holistic way, you are actually risking problems, safety problems, or serious disruptions that can have a big impact. And so my insight when I told the expert about this, they basically said, "Oh, wow, yeah, we didn't think of that." And they opened up the white paper to include the whole world of wireless networks, which was, of course, much more useful for the standards users. For the standard itself, it became much more valuable. So I found that, as I said earlier, that sometimes it's easier for a woman to speak up because there is always this, some men are a little bit afraid to look stupid, to say that quite bluntly, if they ask a question. Or if they go outside of their specialization, while we are sometimes allowed some leeway, and that doesn't mean that what we have to say is stupid. And I think I found that a lot of times, if you have the guts to do that, you can be taken as a very welcome additional element, benefit to the group, and they listen to you. So it takes a little bit of guts, but I think one can get there.
Lois, what's your opinion?
Um, uh, I I'm a good example of a woman exposed in a board that is dominated by males, and I actually chair that board, and which is a big challenge. But I find that being well prepared for example, a board meeting in advance and knowing the subject and being in control and in charge is something that will give you more confidence in the environment, and it makes it less intimidating for me. So knowing the subject, I read a lot around whatever the subject we're discussing, and that puts me in a good position to sit confidently and speak my mind and make my point with confidence. So yeah, that I find that helps to build the confidence, and also to remain focused. If you focus on the objectives, that will remove anything else that's going to distract you or intimidate you. I find that works a lot as well. Yeah, so it's really those things. You just be prepared, know yourself, know your subject, and be confident, be focused, and you win. And you win. Yeah.
Thank you. And Vered, over to you. What's your view?
I would just add to what you all just said that for me, I was focusing less on whether I can fit, but more on what I can contribute. That means learning before studying the material and trying to be focused. And once you're in a room and you're contributing to the conversation, then the environment becomes less intimidating and respect grows through participation. So be there, be yourself, try to contribute, and you get your respect and you get through.
Thank you. Okay, so the next question, when you joined the IFAN board, what were you hoping to give to the standards users community? In practical terms, what does giving look like in this role? Lois, what's your view?
Fresh perspectives. I've recently joined, and I do hope to bring new ideas and experiences on the table. Coming from a different continent, I'm hoping to bring the African perspective and experiences to the table. And that adds to the diversity. We were talking about diversity just now. And it contributes to the advocacy. We are championing the needs of different user groups, and it adds to the variety of our target groups. So I'm hoping to contribute in that way, and to enrich the board through that diversity. In practical terms, giving in a role like this is contributing to contributing to standards development, and making sure that it meets the user's needs, and keeping in mind the diversity of the users that we are targeting. and making sure that as much as possible the coverage is as good enough. And also mentoring others to get involved in standards work is giving. I do a lot of work here in Zimbabwe. I attend conferences related to standardization, where I talk about standardization and and appeal to users, to voice their needs, so that we forward them to the national standardization body. So mentoring, sharing insights to improve how standards are developed or communicated, making more people aware of how using standards makes life better and makes you more competitive, particularly in a developing country like Zimbabwe, where there's still a lot of work to do to bring up the standard of, in all industry, all sectors, standards needs to improve so that Zimbabwe becomes competitive as a country and to break those trade barriers that exist at the moment. So yes, giving, there's a lot to give in the area of standardization, and I wish I could do more, but I enjoy it. Passion is important, and I have a passion for standardization, which has enabled me to give wholeheartedly and without expecting anything in return. So it satisfies me when I see more people buying into standardization.
And Emerald, what's your view?
Okay. As Louis, I hoped to provide fresh perspectives from the fields, and I really want to promote awareness about the use of standards, especially in Africa, because I believe that it is really helpful for every company, regardless of size or activity, and African companies, public or private, still stand to benefit much from the use of standards. And actually, I'm delighted to be a member of the IFAN board, since everyone at IFAN is deeply committed to standards promotion and to how to bridge the gap between users and standards organizations.
Vivian, what does giving look like in the role?
When I joined the IFAN board, I hope I can give the global standard user community a very stronger or more practical voice from China, because I think I represented China to give our information or our needs or our resources to IFAN. So I hope I wanted to help ensure that standards truly serve users, including small businesses and consumers and the organizations from developing countries. But at the same time, as being a board member, giving is also means I have to devote my experience and my information and my network in my daily international work. And at the same time, we need to work also as a bridge between the technical experts and end users to promote the fairness, to promote transparency and inclusive across the standardization system. Thank you.
So, Vered, the next question I'm going to put to you. What have you personally gained from serving on the IFAN board, professionally or personally, that you might not have expected?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. Now that you ask it, I'm just thinking about it. I think I gained a lot. I really gained a lot. First of all, I learned something new every day. I think working with standard users, the first thing that comes into my mind is networking. I met so many wonderful people who care about how the world is going to look like. We're all dealing with standards. Standards are all around us, and we are looking to make our lives better. So I would say networking is the number one for me, what I gained from this. And also, I learned a lot about global views, about industry, business, different realities, different challenges. And you learn that although you live in your own place, I mean, you meet so many people and they have different challenges, but they all together are bonded in one thing to make the world a better world. Um, so that broadens the understanding of the world, and I think I gained a lot through this working in IFAN.
And Vivian, what have you gained from serving on the IFAN board?
I think it's a wonderful experience. Actually, I got to get into touch with the IFAN board is from the year of 2015. That year, my previous Secretary General, Mr. Gao, he was elected as the board member of IFAN, and I work as his assistant, and I get involved with the activities of IFAN board. That is the first year I get into some experience of policy making, and I think it's a wonderful experience for me. Quite different with my previous experience as just as a standards expert. Serving for the IFAN board is such a deeper and global understanding of high standards, how standards can shape our real life, real people, and the business model. So I think it's quite important for personal experience to make into policy making. The process is quite important, and the responsibility, maybe we have to take more responsibility. So I think it's quite valuable and helpful for me to act as my later position in ISO and IEC TNBG GSAG, which also focus on the gender. It focuses on the gender responsive standard and have already worked out a guidance on how to make a gender responsive standard. And the second thing I haven't expected is which I mentioned, the responsibility. I treat myself more than just an expert in multi circumstance, and for some individual item and topic, I would always think what IFAN can get, what IFAN can do in this position. Take for SMART, for instance, you can see that SMART is quite important and can be one of the hottest topic for ISO and IEC in current years, in couple of years. And when we for my personal think, I will not just work as a expert of standard. I not just an expert only use OSD system. I start to thinking what IFAN can do in this process, because IFAN is a community for standard users. So we have to work for standard user to get involved into the whole process of SMART. So, so I think the experience in IFAN board shaped me and give me more responsibility to be for the standardization experience in the future. So I have to thinking about I'm not only writing standard, I'm also involved in shaping the policy. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Vivian. And now on to our last question. For somebody considering volunteering with IFAN, but unsure whether they fit, what reassurance or first small step would you recommend? Emerald, what do you think?
Okay, I think that everyone at IFAN is welcoming and open-minded. And I think also that Vered is an aspiring leader who strives to bring out the best in every member. So I will suggest to check the IFAN website, as well as the social media, and to get in contact with the secretary to learn more about the organization and eventually to register. In my case, I met 3 years ago, Bertin, an IFAN board member at an event in Singapore, and we discussed about my activities and what I was doing to promote standards, especially in Africa, and he encouraged me to join the organization. And I am very glad I did.
Lois, what would you say to somebody thinking about joining?
Many people think or assume that standards work requires you're required to be a deep technical master or a scientist but IFAN thrives on everyday experience, use of standards, the simple practical insights from industry, passion for improving quality, safety, fairness. That's what IFAN thrives on. And a willingness to learn. I'm a new board member, and joining the board recently, I was very nervous about it. But since I've joined, I've realized because of the diversity in the board, I fit in very very well, very welcoming, and everybody accepts or welcomes people's views warmly, which eased up my nerves, and it has allowed me to contribute freely and usefully to the board. So most people would hesitate, but I just want to encourage people that standards work for businesses, and it's for all sizes, all sizes of businesses, SMEs, large organizations, individuals, across all sectors. And so we need the new voices, the fresh perspectives, practical users, people who understand challenges on the ground. Those are the people who should join IFAN, so that we come together and have that voice of standard users that is useful to all backgrounds in the world. So your unique background as an individual shouldn't be a barrier, but it's actually an asset in IFAN. That's what I have to say.
Thank you, Lois. And lastly, Gabriella, what would your advice be? You're muted.
I think that people should realize that their thoughts and ideas are very important because they can help shape and improve standards that are out there. And it's not self-promotion to give to share your experience and ask questions. It's a way of improving the standards that are quietly shaping everybody's daily life. And so maybe join a webinar or an event, listen, share thoughts, ideas, participate in surveys or case studies at the national or regional chapters of IFAN as well. And I think that you can become the bridge between the standards user and the standards makers, because of course IFAN has a direct contact with the standards makers, and the standards makers coming from that area are always looking for feedback to understand how their standards are perceived, what can be improved, and sometimes they're lacking that feedback, and IFAN really fulfills that role, and I'm convinced with your help out there, can continue to fill that role and improve that role further in the future. So I think I would welcome everybody as a member. We are on the board, but I think every little bit helps. Every puzzle piece will make it that the puzzle gets more complete, and as Vered said, that the world gets a better place.
Thank you, Gabriella. Well, what can I say, ladies? Incredibly inspirational group of people with some amazing opinions and ideas. Trying to put that into a couple of sentences to wind up is quite hard, actually. So, a couple of things that I'll just mention. Participation in standardization is largely voluntary. So, all of you are brilliant in that you're giving your time to be here today, as you give your time to participate on the IFAN board and indeed on standards technical committees that you're involved in as well. So thank you for that. I think it came out very clearly that a diverse board is much better than a single sex board in that other people can bring, women in particular, can bring different viewpoints, particularly practical implementation, everyday ideas. We had Gabriella talking about health monitoring devices in industry. I mean, what a brilliant thing to think about and so important. Balance, realistic thoughts, all these come, I think, from having women on the board. Mentoring, another way of giving in the standardization world, and incredibly important because people that join need some help and to build their confidence. And I think the mentoring aspect that Lois mentioned is also really key to getting a diverse board. And I think other things, just simple words like enrichment, networking, awareness. But lastly, the passion that you all show for your work in standards and for being on the IFAN board. And I think that is what takes us forward and hopefully helps us improve the world and make standards better. So I'd like to close by thanking you all for joining me this morning and taking time out of your busy day to talk to everybody out there about on International Women's Day about giving to gain, particularly in the role of standardization. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you.